Sup, bitches. Oh god, what a way to start that video, huh? Well, okay, ladies and gentlemen, as you probably may have gathered from the title, yes, this means that finally, after 8 years since its release, I am just about ready to play what many people consider one of the greatest video games ever made, Bloodborne. And I've been undead, I've been whatever the equivalent is in Demon Souls, and now, before I become tarnished, and before I become basically an ancient Japanese shinobi, I've got to discover exactly what it means to be a hunter. And to do that, we are going to need a bit of a fast-forward introduction. Now, I don't know necessarily whether or not I'll play this game before this video comes out, but whatever happens, the hype and the anticipation surrounding me finally playing Bloodborne has been this feels like it's been quite a long time coming. So if you guys are ready, I think we need to get head in. So apparently it's called Bloodborne Review Defeat God's Doll Waifu Simulator. And it's also made by Maxor, so make sure to give this dickhead a follow and make sure to subscribe to him. So, okay, everyone ready? Alright, let's see what we got. Did I already waste my... I didn't waste my money. I only got this game for about 16 quid, and that's including the Old Hunters DLC, so I should be good. People have also said that the Old Hunters is like the greatest DLC ever released for a video game, which, again, I've played Altarius and the Abyss, all of the Crown DLCs for Dark Souls 2, and Ashes of Erendil and the Ring City, so that's quite a step, all made by the exact same company as well.
The video has spoilers. Bloodborne is a Lovecraftian horror RPG that no one understands by definition, where the player is free to attack hordes of human children at will and consume their innards. If that in-depth and engaging
You see, literally, look, this is going to be me. This is me going to be shooting a woman in the heart, and goodness knows what. Oh god, I don't know why, but the idea of having just guns in this is very... Oh, I'm excited just to use a gun in this game. That's pretty cool. Oh, by the way, when I say play, yes, I really do mean it. I finally managed to get my PS4 out for the first time in like nearly 2 years, so this should be good.
Appeals to you. Keep listening, because it gets worse. In this game, you play as John Bloodborne, a foreigner incapable of speech without the use of sign language, and stricken with Habsburg disease, comes to the ancient city of London, seeking treatment for the sins of his cousins. In doing so, he will begin hallucinating talking dolls, spider people, and the great people. Journeying further, John Bloodborne becomes conscripted into the service of a gay elder god and the 60-year-old man he keeps as a pet, and is given the ultimate task of killing an invisible infant in order to cure his anemia. To accomplish said Herculean task, the player must journey through dark forests, terrifying nightmares, and the meth-ridden alleyways of a post-Brexit Britain, slaying monsters, exploring, and tricking women into being impregnated by gods so you can consume the child. This game is an excellent realization of a Metroidvania with something new around every corner, a great action RPG which pits you against insurmountable odds and extreme challenges, and has a gripping story and lore about discovering the Eldritch truth. So if you can, play it yourself, because I'm not going to hold back on the details. It's no secret that my reviews are entertainment first, so I don't suggest using me as genuine advice. However, most people can't play this game, ever, because you have to buy a $400 magical box sold by the wizard Sony in order to experience it, and even then you get to see it in an amazing 30 frames per second with no anti-aliasing. Port this game to PC, I beg of you. In fact, I can assume that a lot of people watching this video will basically never play the game, but keep watching because I'm hilarious and original. Do that, and I can give you the full, unfiltered, uncensored, unsubstantiated, and unsportsmanlike experience that is...
Okay, so, quick question just before we really get into this. Am I going to finish this game? Oh, absolutely. This game, I'm not joking. For a game that came out in 2015, you know what? No, who am I kidding? You know what? I have a copy of... In fact, I'll literally get it right here. I mean, I'll get my Switch out of the way, and I can literally showcase to you. I mean, I got God of War 3 Remastered came out in the same year, and you know what? Oh, who am I kidding? God of War 3 looks beautiful 13 years later. In fact, even though I accidentally dropped a weight on Injustice 2, I still haven't even taken this out of the box yet. And bear in mind, this came with like with a way to actually unlock someone in this game. I don't know if it was Darkseid or someone, but yeah, again, that'll be good. Crash Bandicoot. I mean, just look at all these games I had. I still got the physical copies and everything. And Final Fantasy 15, never been out of the box. Injustice Ultimate, the first game, Ultimate Edition, which I will. By the time I actually finish that, then I'll actually get to play Injustice 2. So it's going to be pretty good. So anyway, back to what we were talking about. Oh yeah, that's right.
Bloodborne.
The basics.
The gameplay is what makes this game great, and the easiest way to describe it is simple but complicated. On a simple level, your baby brain is responsible for only 2 tasks, dodging and hitting. And dodging in this game renders you temporarily invincible. Sounds easy, right? Wrong, because every single enemy is adjusted to keep pace with you. Basic enemies are basically able to whoop your ass into fucking non-existence. Every encounter, therefore, is tense and engaging. When you kill someone, it's because you were faster and had more meth than they did. On a complicated level, you have a gun, and normally bullets hurt people, but in London, bullets are a suggestion, like the Geneva Convention. Here in England, it's all about the knife bins. Except when you shoot somebody mid-attack, you gain the mystical and arcane ability to plunge your fist through their ribcage like Mortal Kombat, and rip out their heart, which is considered rude and a slight annoyance. This extends to behind them if you charge an attack, which sometimes causes you to reach up a pig's asshole and rip out the prostate like fruit by the foot. Side note, the most optimal farming route for currency in this game is called Murgo's Pig Fisting Route. See, I changed the webpage.
In fact, you know what? Hang on. Is it still there? Hang on. Hang on. Please let me know if it's still there. Well, there is a thing on Reddit, but no, that's. I literally typed in. Oh god, what is this? Hang on, I gotta show this to you guys. I'm sorry about this, but you type Murgo's Pig Fisting Route into Google Images, and literally like, Dark Ring, Demon Souls Die Twice, fans farming currency. Bloodborne fans farming currency consume the. Oh, okay. I didn't even read that far. Yep. Let's see. Memes. You know how it's gonna happen. The pig lets you backstep because it enjoys it. Oh dear. I was hoping for maybe something else in there, but never mind.
You sneak up behind this guy and do him the dirty. Then entice these 2 swinular bastards to be mauled to death by members of Organization 13. Repeat 50 times. On a complicateder level, every single weapon in the game has 2 different modes with 2 different movesets. And transforming between them gives you special attacks, in addition to running attacks, plunging attacks, On a theoretical physicist level, your character memorizes squiggly lines and fridge art created by gods for passive bonuses that work regardless of weaponry. My favorites are more money, and more money they stack. Finally, on a meta-theoretical chiropractic level, every weapon is customizable with different gem slots that give differing effects for your attacks. And there are different types that can literally change all of the stats of the weapon, like making a fucking spear do more damage based off of intelligence. There's definitely more and a lot of strategy in how you level up your character, but I assume that you know how to level up in a fucking video game. But with all this combat prowess, you may be wondering, Maxor, who are these crusty abominations that you're fighting on screen? Well, to learn that much, we're going to have to delve into the lore. So buckle your britches, bitches, because this shit is wild. If I say something questionable, just accept it as fact. I can be trusted.
I will be honest. There's not a great deal I do know about this game, apart from the fact that you literally go out into London and basically slaughter a lot of people. And there's this guy, somebody called, I think it was called Mikolash. I think it was just mentioned right there. And people have warned me not to play the game just because of Mikolash. I mean, come on, how bad can he be?
60 years ago, 20 rowdy college students took their education extremely seriously because they found Woman Cthulhu. She was just in a portable toilet downstairs. Also, because they were bored, they beat to death a god of the sea with some bats, but that's a story for later. It turns out the entire world is ruled and created by a race of elder gods beyond human comprehension called the Great Ones. Figuring this out, they got Cthulhu's blood and were like, we can make a religion out of this. Because it turns out the blood can heal people, which is really good due to all the knife crime. So everyone starts drinking it a little too much and they get the money to build 36 cathedrals, but it turns out eventually the blood turns you into a werewolf. So the church hires a guy named German to go fight the beasts with an organization known as the Hunters, but there's too many beasts, so he gives up. Now the knife crime is increased even more, and German sort of goes insane and creates a life-size doll of one of his students who is an 8-foot-tall Amazonian. He also canonically has sex with it. The moon god, for some reason, kind of takes notice of this and is like, alright, listen, I'm building a suicide squad. I will bring your waifu to Laifu if you serve me for all time as my slave. German reasonably thinks that this is a great deal and is imprisoned in a dream. This is where you come in. See, the moon god assassinates baby gods for fun, but needs a hitman to go into the real world to do it since he's confined to the 9th dimension. So in addition to fighting all manner of giant beasts and uncovering dark secrets, the true aim of this game is to commit infanticide. There's enough bullshit here to fill tax legislation, so comment your own poorly summarized Bloodborne lore below. And for the rest of us non-shills, we have
You see, maybe this is the best thing about, because I do know as well that Vati Vadia, I know absolutely would do probably a review for Bloodborne. But I don't know. This just sort of like tells me enough about maybe what I'm getting myself into. I don't think it would spoil everything about the game, but basically sometimes really it's funny as well, you know what I mean? Because lore is a thing people really do care for in these games, but if the gameplay does not hold up, then the lore, then it may as well just be then what's the difference between just watching somebody play it and playing it for yourself? Because no word of a lie, now that I actually have a controller again, I can actually play Dark Souls 2 on PC. And I think if people have been through this situation like I have, don't think you can just play Dark Souls 2 on a keyboard. You have to put in a good day and a half work to completely unbind all the controls and then rebind them again. At least Elden Ring, at least that's, you know, that's a different process, I guess, because there's so many different mechanics involved.
Explain more of what makes this game great. Yes, you have been jinked. I am talking about bosses before I talk about the levels. In most video games, bosses cap off areas, but in Bloodborne, areas are preambles to a dick flattening, and nothing will challenge your skill in quite the same way. Except for the goddamn Witches of Hemwick, who were placed into the game for disability access. You can probably tell that Bloodborne is a hard game. We don't even know if a games journalist can beat it. But it's hard in a fair way that tests your skills and reaction time, except for Lawrence, but I'll get back to Lawrence later. What sets this game's bosses apart is that the challenge makes it feel like you're a really small dude jabbing a toothpick into a building-sized deer demon. So yeah, I would be impressed if he killed that. But not only that, unlike Dark Souls, every single boss reacts meaningfully to how you attack them. Large beasts can have their bones cracked and their tendons wound into a slinky. Bone boys can be knocked over and have their marrow shipped. And human enemies will wince and recoil when they see your height difference. As well, every boss punishes you for cowardice and actively discourages backpedaling with their forward momentum, causing every fight to be an elaborate dance with a thrilling back and forth.
I know, again, this is something that I just bring up every now and then, because for a while I've been absolutely obsessed with doing those Dark Soul no death runs, and the furthest I've ever got up to is defeating the Capra demon and then randomly thinking I had what it took to defeat the Titanite demon that's lying just outside of Andre's smithing table, and it ends about as well as you might expect. And sometimes, in a lot of the Dark Souls in the first game especially, you have to work out exactly what you got to do at the exact right moment, and then work itself up from there. But I would like the idea as well of just, I wouldn't even get past the idea of dying into certain bosses in this game, because to be honest, just looking at some of these about the height difference, it looks like the fights could be more drawn out and extremely even. And this is absolutely the case in Dark Souls 3. A lot of the fights are extremely balanced most of the time, but I think Bloodborne looks somewhat a little bit more like some gigantic sized brawl. I wish there was a better way to describe it, but just looking at everything, and again, if it's really 30 frames per second, then that means this is like almost a throwback to like almost like a PS1, really.
Who is the really hungry caterpillar if he had a legion of arachnid slaves who threw their heads underground like ostriches. We don't talk about him. And while we're on the subject of bad bosses, this motherfucker, let me tell you something. The humanoid bosses in this game are paradoxically the most dangerous. But Mikolash is a psychological hazard that will hurt you personally. This boss literally feels like cut content because the fight centers around chasing him, and his direction depends on RNG, making him an actual speedrun killer. When you corner him, he uses one attack, and then you chase him again, where he gains the power to insta-kill you. God forbid you're hit by it, because that's 10 minutes gone. Here's a tip. Save up 10 poison knives and steal from your family if you must. Then wait until he jumps down this hole, poison him repeatedly, and watch him spaz the fuck out until death. You will thank me. But as a result of everyone who isn't Miko shit, conquering a boss in this game is absolutely rewarding on a level that other games cannot match. It's only because the odds are stacked against you in ways that don't feel bullshit most of the time that conquering them is the main reason I play, and their fights are undoubtedly the best I've ever done in video games. But that isn't most of the time in the game. In fact, a lot of your time is spent exploring the areas, so let's get into that. Lesson 1 in area design. Where the fuck am I going? Exploration is the name of the game, except it's called Bloodborne. Only this time, you don't bring smallpox and kill 20 million people. We're looking at a solid 10 this time, because the main enemies in this game are British townspeople. It's how the developers made sure you didn't feel bad about killing them. The plague of beasts infecting London causes people's teeth to become beast-like, makes you aggressive at night, and slurs your speech. So it's up to you to stop them as a hunter should. If you don't look up where to go next in this game, good fucking luck. People get lost all the time. Get used to it. This game doesn't do exploration like, oh look, there's loot in this hallway, my dopamine's gonna go crazy. That's baby shit. This is daddy's exploration, where you find a route back to a place you were in 10 hours ago. And I hope you weren't expecting a mini-map, or any map. Every single hallway is a rabbit hole of discovery, and your hand isn't held. Case in point,
actually, again, I'm kind of glad as well that they mentioned the thing about no map, because if anything, this is something I think like Elden Ring picks up on, by just not having everything looks so clear and there's like so little on screen to distract you. The layout, just the presentation looks fantastic. I must say it looks stunning.
Level, but feels like a hub area because it connects to fucking everything. And where you start the game is in the middle of a loop-de-loop involving torturous experimentation. Just look at the fucking map of this game. Everything overlaps. And yes, there is a level called Nightmare Lecture Hall, and no, it does not connect to the Altar of Despair, although you would think that. Fittingly, the lecture hall is the smallest area, and more fittingly, 90% of the combat is graduates throwing cum at you. The game also has 2 completely secret areas that you would not find without the internet. I would tell you how to enter, but I don't want to do calculus. And what you get at the end? Upper Cathedral Ward is legitimately a horror area in a game loved for its combat, because it's filled with enemies who act out my greatest fears. Stealing currency permanently gives me fucking chills every time I talk about it. Castle Canehurst is proof that From Software hates us all, since the best area in the entire game requires you to go to the Field of Corn in Ohio and trek down Waldo. But it's worth it to invade the house of that parasitic queen dwelling in her demented castle, so that she may feel the wrath of the proletariat. All we have to do is kill Prince Philip, who guards the way as an eternal lich. On top of this, there are numerous NPCs and NPC quest lines spread throughout the world, all with a series of interactions with each other depending on location and timing. For instance, you could direct nuns, prostitutes, and Prince Philip to a church run by a lonely black sludge, then perform enough blood transfusions to send the nun into a yandere rage. Or you could direct them to the nice woman who runs the clinic down the street, who only wants to help and assist others. Then take a strange path through the forest and into her clinic to discover that she has been experimenting on all of them in order to create the Blue Man Group. And if you want, you can take the umbilical cord away from her schizophrenic ass and eat it. The sky's the limit in Bloodborne questlines. And you know what my favorite questline is? The one where you descend into literal hell.
So, wait a minute. What is it? What do you have to do when you eat these umbilical cords? Do you just sort of go somewhere, or what? I know. To be honest, I think I'm almost beginning to like know even less about what is going on with this game.
eternal punishment, insanity, and femboy fishing, the scariest of them all. I'm of course talking about the DLC, the only DLC for this game. And if you play through Bloodborne, you have to play through the DLC. I'm not giving you a fucking choice. So to learn why, you should play the best expansion ever made since Spore Galactic Adventures. Jungles. Come with me on this amazing journey to find the secrets of the Bloodborne, the Old Hunters. I want you to imagine hell. Now imagine hell written by H.P. Lovecraft. It would be filled with squids, immigrants, and air conditioning. This DLC has none of that except the squids. For you see, those college kids from the lore section of the video were built fucking different. They experimented on an entire village and possibly beat up a god of the sea so fucking bad that her consciousness in the 9th dimension died. We spent an entire game killing an infant and these guys somehow killed the MILF god. But anyways, in the process of this, it cursed them and all of the hunters to be doomed to a hell upon death, where they will hunt in a bloodthirsty rage without rest for all eternity, indistinguishable from a political subreddit. Case in point, this is Ludwig. He's the first boss of the DLC and has a reputation for causing refunds. Not because he's bad, but because he's too good for you. The first phase is as difficult for me as realizing that Golden Corral is not actually a real corral. But like every restaurant except Golden Corral, the rewards at the end are delicious because his second phase
I know,
is
again, I sort of just... So, is this guy like some knight or like some knight of one of these cathedrals? But why is half his body... Why is he a horse? Like, what? Oh my god! It looks this, and they're fighting in a literal pool of blood with dead bodies everywhere. And you know what? Maybe I didn't even notice this from playing Dark Souls so much, but this is like the first time they really pushed the envelope in terms of the scale, and you're running across an entire pool of blood. That is a sick looking view. That is.
Even harder. Now, I'm not going to lie, this DLC has 4 bosses and 3 of the hardest bosses I have ever fought in any video game ever. So, your ass will be clenched the entire time, and the fact that he's the 3rd hardest is fucking concerning. Some people tell me, Maxor, your videos have gotten me through tough times because they made me laugh. But like this boss, you are the one who is truly overcoming these challenges, and I believe in your ability to beat both of them, King. Boss Lightning Round. The DLC has many such cases of amazing bosses, including Lady Maria, who is the basis for German's extremely creepy 8-foot-tall doll fetish, but we'll get back to that. And Orphan of Cause, who was born from the literal dead body of a god. If you enjoy the sensation of being beaten to death with a sharpened placenta, this is the fight for you. And as with everything that From Software makes, they threw in a boss that they didn't really finish and called it a day. I'm of course talking about Lawrence, which is a
The Bed of Chaos was 100% finished. It's just when they finished it that they then realized it was the single worst idea that they've ever come up with. I know by the time I get to finish doing Bloodborne and then going through Elden Ring and Sekiro, yeah, I'll do... Is Sekiro also another like PS4 exclusive? Because I'll play through that, play through Elden Ring, and I can still predict that if I do like a full tier list for all of From Software's bosses, somewhere probably Bed of Chaos would either be last or second to last. Only behind the second time you fight King Allant or the Vanguard or the Royal Rat Vanguard. It's one of those 3 is the worst boss, or maybe the Folding Screen Monkeys. There's actually, or the Blue Smelter Demon.
Name for a fire monster locked in hell. Take my advice, don't fight Lawrence, you only lose a part of yourself, since this boss fights you by dropping off his own legs and then violently vomiting and shitting lava everywhere. I've always wanted my game about dynamic dodging and elaborate fencing to be reduced to shitty area denial like it's Team Fortress 2. To wrap things up, the music of this game is pretty good, but the DLC music is fucking insane. I don't know what it is about Japanese composers being able to make better symphonies than the continent that invented them, but just take a listen. Have you ever thought, as I
In fact,
do,
you know
that
what?
this
Again, just speaking of the music, I'm actually going to play this again.
better symphonies than the continent that invented them, but just take a listen.
That's another thing I always kind of wanted to actually do, like a tier list that I haven't seen anybody else do. I actually want to do an OST from software tier list. Because the music is just as important to these fights as well as the arena, the mechanics, and everything else. Lore, weaponry, and, you know, cool factor and all that. Because, ironically, if it was an OST, Bed of Chaos would actually rank a little bit higher than the very bottom of the pile. But if that's meant to be the music for Ludwig, then, oh boy, we might have a problem here. That might be the best. But then, no, actually, no. I've played through the whole of Dark Souls 3. It would have to compete with the likes of Sullivan, Gale, oh god, as well, the Twin Princes. I still actually to this day think that Medea, Dark Eater Medea, has the best OST in all of Dark Souls 3. It might even be my favourite of them all, but we'll have to see about that. It's gonna be a very interesting thing to rank all of them. Or Nameless King. Oh god, that's you see immediately who would be? What is your favorite OST from these games, by the way? And these have to be bosses as well. They can't be like hub areas and other locations, because Majula would rank almost number one in that case.
Have you ever thought, as I do, that this game is just too good, that you would really rather be playing a shittier version of the game, such as the engagement of the Chalice dungeons? I, of course, jest. They're fine, probably, except for half of them, because Bloodborne has an optional system of infinite dungeon generation for all of those who wish to break free of the shackles of good level design. Let's talk about how, and more importantly, why. First of all, Bloodborne has a system of dungeons that everyone shares and dungeons that are random. For my footage, I played the shared dungeons so that you can be guaranteed the pain you witness on screen is mandatory. One of the biggest strengths of Bloodborne is the ability to have interesting and challenging enemy encounters gently rubbed with the blood-stained hands of Miyazaki. But I don't think I have to explain to you how randomizing almost every encounter in the game could be imbalanced. But fortunately, most enemies you encounter in the Chalice dungeons are new to spare British people your wrath, so you instead fight SCP-96. But why are we here? It turns out that the entire city of London was built on a Celtic burial ground, an ancient civilization called the Sumerians who discovered the healing powers of blood and then mysteriously disappeared. Wow, I wonder what happened. This is all cool in theory, but the reality is that most of the time you fight the same 4 enemies, and the first 3 dungeons can be replaced by Simon Says. My cat literally wouldn't notice. The Chalice dungeons are so forgotten that the developers use them to put joke enemies into the game. My favorite is the man who aggressively rolls at you stark naked wearing only his Nikes. The uniqueness also extends to the bosses, and they're actually pretty cool, like Tumerian Descendant, Watchdog, and the 3 overweight men. Do you remember that basic enemy from like 2 levels? He is the boss now. Rom, he is the boss again. The only thing stopping me from throwing myself into a wood chipper is the fact that Mikolash isn't back. And if you're going to have replays, you probably want to make sure that they're actually good. In fact, the bosses are so fucking imbalanced that the Watchdog fight is primarily comprised of instant kill attacks. I beat Sekiro backwards on a keyboard, and this shit is too fucking much. Now, normally that would be all, but the dungeons go deeper. What we have discussed so far is merely the surface, and there is a much darker syndicate lying just below. These places you must never venture, for they are the save edit dungeons, whereby through wizardry, the community are able to conjure up deep, dark chasms and share them with the rest of the world. Of these secrets, there are only 2 that I shall reveal to you, and the first is the Cum Dungeon. Yes, you heard that correctly and clearly. The Cum Dungeon is the name of the most optimal farming route ever conceived by the fucking cricket people who do this shit, whereby the player enters the chasm of place name and watches as a high-level boss yeets itself off a cliff. Murgo's pig fisting route can give you 10,000 echoes. This gives 83,000. And if you thought that sorcery was bad, it gets much worse. You can insert anything from the game files by save editing a Chalice dungeon. anything. This includes cut and unfinished content from the game that the developers forgot to delete, like this doggo who attacks you with invisible lightning. Overall, the Chalice dungeons are bad. They're not actually very fun to play, and yet I love them. Everyone loves them because they allow us to further explore a long-dead game with the help of a passionate community. Now, before we sign off, I know what you're thinking. Maxor, what about the multiplayer? That I would love to talk about with all the footage I have, but it's dead. If this game releases on PC, and it better, then I will talk about the multiplayer extensively. And finally, this game and this video would not be complete if I didn't talk about the Hunter's Dream. After all the combat, the battles, and the difficulty of this game, it's nice to have a place to recharge, purchase items, upgrade weapons, and watch as it violently burns to the ground. This is where you'll find German slowly wasting away as his soul remains captive for an eternity, and his doll waifu that he sold his existence to be with. She talks to you, levels you up, offers you advice,
what did it say about Trump there?
Items, upgrade weapons, and watch as it violently burns to the ground. This is where you'll find German slowly wasting away as his soul remains captive for an eternity, and his doll waifu that he sold his existence.
Man sells soul for pussy. He knew. Maxor 100% knew. Yo, that's a mood right there. Oh man. Oh, that's too funny. Okay, it's too late at night. It's like nearly 9:15 at night. This is Maxor. What the? Okay.
To be with. She talks to you, levels you up, offers you advice, and German says you're allowed to have sex with her. When I fell down and felt defeated, she was there to pick me up. When I emoted at her randomly, she pretended to be impressed, and she was there, graciously standing in the background of this one shot that I took of myself. She is our waifu now, and the game is perfect and complete because she is in it. Now excuse me as I engage in the supplementary lore material. Should you get the game, yes, absolutely, I am biased. In fact, you should physically enter Sony's headquarters and demand that it be ported to PC. I will be right there with you. Tasers will not stop me. I would like to thank the corrupt hackers and politicians funneling money into this channel directly from the taxpayer. If you would like to contribute your funds accrued through extensive federal government corruption, you can head to my Patreon to learn more. I would also like to thank the kind denizens of the Mythbusters Smut Discord who sent me half the memes in this video. And as always, thank you for watching.
So yeah, absolutely, 100%. I would immediately want. You know what? To be honest, at this stage in the proceedings, I might actually just as soon as I'm done with this, I should just go out and literally just play Bloodborne like right now. Also, again, I'm looking at some of these like Genshin Impact. Ultra Kill, like Elden Ring as well. But you know what, again, I'm gonna have to spend a lot of time thinking about probably what the best idea is, because if I mean, again, just to sign off and say that I'm being completely fair about this, oh man, I'm gonna have some fun. I might actually, you know what, have some fun playing video games again, instead of just thinking it's a sport or just wasting my time trying to get the deathless run. If the day ever comes when I start streaming, then you can be guaranteed that I will just spend my entire time doing, trying to do like a Dark Souls deathless run. So that should be cool. Anyway, I will see all of you guys again very, very shortly. As soon as I play and finish Bloodborne and probably do a review of it myself.